everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shirley Stewart. If this is your first time joining us today, please hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you'll be able to be notified every time I post a video. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button as well. Thank you for stopping by. Today we're going to talk about stabilizers. And stabilizer is the foundation of embroidery. If you don't use the correct stabilizer, then your garment or your stitch out is not going to look the way you want it to look. You're just not going to get the end result without proper stabilizer. And as you can see on my table, I have a large array of stabilizer. Don't want to scare you off thinking that you have to start off with all of these different types of stabilizers. But I have to tell you that as you progress on with your process of embroidering and making different projects and different items that you want to sell or give away or just use for yourself, you will realize that you're going to have to use the correct stabilizer for each one of your garments. It's not like a one fits all. On my other video, I did speak about a handy tool that will help you with deciding what stabilizer is best for your particular project. So I do encourage you to look into this particular product. The name of it is the Embroiderer's Compass. It is manufactured by Dime, which is design in machine embroidery. It costs around anywhere from $20 to $25 depending upon whether or not you can get it on sale. Oftentimes you can find it in embroidery stores if you're near one. Anybody that sells embroidery machines or thread or the notions for embroidery normally carries this. If not, you can order it directly from the company. I'm not sponsored by Dime. I just like to tell you what I use and what works best for me. And I know this is something that is pretty useful. Also, if you have embroidery software, oftentimes it has a help button within its toolbar that will tell you, will assist you with making a decision of what stabilizer to use based upon what design you're using, the stitch count, and whether or not, what the density is. It oftentimes will help you make a decision on what stabilizer and what needle to use, because those two go together and it's very important. So I'm just going to go over briefly some of this that I have on this table. And again, don't feel like if you're just starting off that you have to get all of this. This has been accumulated over time based upon all of the different designs that I have done. So first of all, I'm going to start off with the basic that you have to have. And you really need to have at least 3 to 4 different types of stabilizer to start off. The standard is cutaway, which comes in various sizes and weight. You also need to get a good tearaway stabilizer. You need to get what we call a wash-away stabilizer, and you may need to get poly mesh, because those are the 4 stabilizers that are normally used on different projects and different garments. Now what I have before me are these 2 packages here of what I accumulated for usage with my single needle machine. Now this one is a cutaway, and it is exactly what it says. You cannot tear it, you must cut it away. This is the standard, and there's a saying going that if you wear it, don't tear it. So they're basically saying if it's a garment that you're going to wear and it's going to be washed a lot and used a lot, you want to make sure that the stitches stay in place. You need to use a cutaway. And this is a size 10 by 12, and it is pre-cut, which I do love. It does sort of increase your cost a little bit. You know, anytime you get something that is convenience, they're going to tack on that extra charge, but they're not terribly expensive. And with this particular package, you get 100 pieces of the 10 by 12, and you can use it in your 5 by 7 hoop if that's what you have on your machine. The next one this is a tearaway. So you can see it does exactly what it says. You can literally tear it with your hand. And this is used with towels, different materials that have pow, or something that you do not want it to be shown on the back of your project when you're using it, when you're making it. So what happens is you use this, and when you're done, you can literally tear it away. You can tear it away from the stitching. Oftentimes people use this with in the hoop design, so you can tear it away and people can't see the actual stabilizer that's there. And that again is the same size, 10 by 12, to be used in your 5 by 7. Now I have a couple of other. This particular size is an 8 by 8. And I showed you the black one on my other video, 8 by 8, and this is for your 4 by 4 embroidery machine or hoop. So if you have a 4 by 4 embroidery machine that only uses the 4 by 4, then that's your largest hoop. Then if you want to get the pre-cut, get the 8 by 8, and this is the size, and it fits perfectly in that hoop for your project that is going to be 4 by 4. This particular stabilizer that I have in my hand is what I call a poly mesh, so what they call poly mesh. And this is excellent for using on t-shirts and polo shirts, anything that you don't want a big shadow that's going to show through the shirt because of the stabilizer being thick. This works really well. Now sometimes it is suggested that if you have a dense design that you're using and you want it to go on a shirt or something that is thin, that you double. Now there is an expert, Mr. John Deere, that does digitizing. He has numerous videos on YouTube, and I have put a link to his site. States that if you have to use more than one sheet or one layer of stabilizer, then there is the possibility that the digitizing isn't as correct as it can be. Now, I'm not going to support that because we use a lot of designs from various people. At least I do. And you will find yourself probably doing the same, because a lot of times you will get it from Etsy, and it's just multiple people that does designs. Some of them are really good, and some of them may not be as good as the other one. If you use some of the designs from companies like Embroiderer's Library or Embroidery Library, excellent. Stitchtopia for basically fonts, excellent. Urban Threads, that's kind of the sister of Embroidery Library, excellent. Falcom Designs, excellent. Those are some of the design stores that I have complete confidence in their designs and their digitization, and you can probably get away with not using multiple layers of stabilizers if you are going to use some of those designs. But as time goes on and you learn your ability to hoop correctly and choose the correct fabric for the project, then you'll get more comfortable in knowing what will require extra layers and what will not. So I just want to show you that. So what I have up here, not to scare you, again, like I said, you don't have to have all of this at one time, but what I do want to mention is that when you have a single needle machine, the size of your stabilizer is going to be different than when you have a multi-needle machine, because your hoops are larger. And again, that increases your cost, because the larger the stabilizer is, the more they're going to charge you for it. Now, I have several stabilizers over here in rows. This again is another poly mesh stabilizer. This is a pill and stick. What is pill and stick? I mentioned this on my other video, that can be used a lot of times with items that you're floating. If you're using like the fast frame that we've discussed, this is excellent. This is the only thing that I use. As a matter of fact, I think this is the only thing that you can use with the fast frame, because you have to have something that is going to allow your fabric or your blank to stick to the fast frame. So this being pill and stick. And again, like I said, it is exactly what you say. You cut this out to the size that you need to fit your hoop. And again, this is going to be basically for either the fast frame size hoops or a 4x4, because of the diameter, because of the area. As you can see, it is probably about 7 or 8 by probably, I think this is 25 yards total roll that I purchased. And 90% of my stabilizers I have gotten off of Amazon. I have ordered stabilizers from a couple of embroidery sewing machine companies like All Brand, All Stitch, Ganol, Madeira. They sell stabilizers as well. So those are some of the sites that you can get some of your stabilizers from. The other thing that I do want to mention is that when you're making a choice, I know a lot of people will tell you specific brands work better than others. Now again, according to John Deere, he states that there's only 1 or 2 companies in the world, I guess, that produces certain stabilizers, even though you have multiple brands of stabilizers. So his recommendation is, do not pick your stabilizer based upon brand, but do it based upon cost, to be cost effective. That is information that I'm sharing with you based upon what the expert is saying. I know a lot of people, when I first started off, everybody was saying Sulky was the best stabilizers to buy, and it could very well be true. I do have several of these. This one is a water-soluble stabilizer, and what a water-soluble stabilizer is, it's just like what the name is, and is used primarily as a topper or for freestanding lace. It looks like almost like a like your plastic wrap that you use to wrap things up in your kitchen, plastic wrap, but it's oftentimes a little thicker, and you can see through it. And I don't know if I brought one that was open. I did not, but let me see if this is open. Yeah. This is what this particular one looks like, and it's a little thick. Some of them are thinner, some of them are this thick. This is considered a heavyweight, and it is 7.78 inches by 8 yards for this particular stabilizer that I got, and I think I got these from Joann or either off of Amazon, and it is called Ultra Salty, and it is a sulky product. So that is one of the things. Also, let me give you a little tip. Whenever you're using your stabilizers, it's really important that you write down somewhere, or if you tear the cellophane off, that you kind of stick it in the little cylinder here, or write the name in here some kind of way so you'll know exactly what it is, because as you see, you have multiple ones, and you may even want to put in there where you got it from. So when you're ready to reorder, you'll be able to do that without having to worry about whether or not I've gotten this before or where did I get it. So that's important. This again is another poly mesh, so I don't want to go over that. In the smaller poly mesh. This is what we call tender touch. And you may have heard people talk about tender touch. What exactly is tender touch? If you do children's clothes, shirts, onesies, even with adult shirts, oftentimes you want to put a tender touch on the back where the bobbin thread is. Okay, you open that, because it can have some irritation, and it is really recommended if you're doing onesies or children's clothes that you use this. And again, this is pressed on with an iron for about 5 to 6 seconds, and you press, not iron, you press in various places, and it adheres to that back, and it covers the thread, so it keeps it from being an irritant to the skin. And so it is recommended that you do get something. They have different brands. I have another brand that I tried. I got it from off of Amazon, and I have to be honest about it. I don't like it. I've only used it a couple of times. I went on and got the Tender Touch by Sulky, and I do like it. So it is the preference of the person that's buying it, but I haven't gotten anything from Sulky that I did not like. So that is a product you might want to stay with. And we talked about the water soluble. These are, this one is what they call a heat and, what is that? Heat and gone. Heat and gone. So basically, if you're doing, say you're doing a towel, and you put the topper, which is one of your little plastic type stabilizers, on there, then this would be, in order to remove it, you have to use an iron to remove it. A water-soluble stabilizer, like I showed you, you use water to remove it. So those are the difference in that. This particular one that I haven't opened yet is a watering gone is what it's called. And again, this is what you use if you're making freestanding lace. You might want to use this particular product. This is also one that is for freestanding lace, and it is a Violin. V-I-L-E-N-I. It is a water-soluble stabilizer, and this particular one was recommended by several people on Facebook, so I got it. I actually have not used it, but it is definitely recommended if you're going to do freestanding lace. It states that it's probably the best. It has this woven feel texture. So when you're doing freestanding lace, which we can talk about those different projects at another video, you just use a stabilizer, something like this, a topper. Your top thread and your bottom thread has to be the same color in order for it to come out pretty. No one really does it with different color bobbin and top. It is very beautiful. And this is what they suggest that you use for that. This particular one is a fusible, no-show mesh, poly mesh stabilizer. It has been recommended to use this also on t-shirts and sweatshirts and different items such as that, where you actually iron this onto your garment and then you do your stitching. You may put a topper on it as well to make sure those stitches pop up and don't flatten out. And that's the whole purpose of putting a topper on your fabric. And that's basically anything that has a pile, P-I-L-E. And that's like towels, blanket material, fleece material, circle material, anything that has a pile on it. Then you have to use, or you should use, a topper, a water-soluble topper, in order to make the stitches stay up once you're done stitching, because they can get hidden in all that pile and you're just kind of wasting your time because your project is not going to come out and look as pretty as you want it to look without putting a topper on there. Now they recommend that you do not hoop it. You're going to hoop your regular stabilizer that you're going to use, depending upon what material it is. You'll do a tearaway or a cutaway. Then you'll put your fabric or your blank on there and you'll go ahead and hoop it. And then when you put it in the machine to stitch, then that's when you put this layer on top of it, your wash away layer on top of it, and just stitch on top of that, and that works really well. So don't fret and worry about putting all of these layers of stabilizers and cloth in your hoop. Wash away always goes on top. So you see all of these. This is a heat and bond, and it is in the purple wrapper, because this is what is recommended that you use when you're doing applique. And again, you fuse it onto the fabric. It kind of looks like the peel and stick, but it's not. It has a rough texture on one side and a smooth texture on the other side, and the rough texture goes towards the on top of the product that you're stitching, and then you go ahead and use an iron to press it on there for a certain period of time, depending upon what the fabric is, and then you're able to go ahead and use that particular piece of fabric that you have cut out for your applique. And we'll go over appliques in another video. These big rows of stabilizers are here simply as an example of the difference in size once you get a multi-needle machine. Now I can use these three over here in my multi-needle machine because they're large enough. They're 12 by 10 yards, or at least 12 inches. The three of these are 12 inches wide, and then they're so many yards long. These are a little bigger. This particular one is a tearaway, and it's a 10 by 50 yards. So at least it's 10 inches. It will work in my multi-needle machine because the width of mine is at 8 inches, so that gives me an inch on both sides to hoop. 12 by whatever is really the best to get. I suggest when you're looking at getting stabilizer for a multi-needle machine, depending upon what is your largest hoop size. This one is a cutaway. This one here, I believe, is also a cutaway with a different weight. This is a black poly mesh because I do use darker fabrics, darker blanks sometimes, and I prefer to have a darker mesh versus a lighter mesh. And I also found out that the poly mesh normally comes in 3 colors. Well actually I think I have seen the third color in a Joann fabric store, And as you know, most Joann's have a little inside store that sells embroidery machine. Mine has the Husqvarna slash Viking store inside the Joann, and that's where I saw the third color, which is you get white, you can get black, and you can get like a blush or skin tone color. So it gives you a little variety of choosing the right color poly mesh, as well as the fact that it is a poly mesh that you can use on something that's a little sheer or not as thick. And this is, if I'm not mistaken, is a cut up, is a tear away. As you can see, I can tear it. So again, you still have to have your main ones, and you're going to have them in the correct size. I just want to go over the list to make sure that I covered everything as far as the different types of stabilizers: cutaway, tear away, heat and bond, fusible, poly mesh, a regular poly mesh in 3 different colors, a wash away stabilizers, your wet and gone, and your heat and gone. Those are the 3 typical categories of stabilizers. And then once you hit all of those categories, you can get the different brands and the different makeups and different weights and all of that, which will depend upon your own preference based upon what it is that you're actually making. So I'm checking my notes to see if I left anything out. Want to talk about the water-soluble stabilizer. It is exactly what you say, like I mentioned, water-soluble. So once you use it to stitch on top of your project, your blank, then you can tear away the excess part, but to get the intricate pieces out of your lettering or whatever it is that you stitch, it's kind of difficult sometimes. It's almost like you want to weed it, like you do with your Cricut material, your HTV vinyls, but you don't. You have to wet it. Now you can use a little spray bottle to wet it that has water and a little pinch of vinegar, which was suggested by Eve Lowry from the Baby Booty. She states that she puts a little bit of vinegar in her little bottle, the little spray bottle, and regular water, and that's what she uses to squirt to get the water soluble to come off, or when you use your marking pen that comes off with water. Those are the 2 things, if I remember correctly, that she uses this for. But anyway, you will need to use water, and so don't use a water-soluble stabilizer on any type of material that's not washable. That's when you would use your heat and bond, your heat and gone stabilizer. So you would use an iron to get it off. So just know your fabric. One other stabilizer I want to mention, if you're doing hats or caps. Now you don't have to get this, but I did. And I got this from, I believe, All Stitch. And it is cutaway embroidery backing for the caps. And it fits perfectly. So it's like a mesh, but you cut it out. And this is what I use when I'm doing my caps, and it works really well. I love it. Now I just want to wrap up by saying that 99% of every project that you embroider will need stabilizers. There's very few situations where you don't need to put a stabilizer down prior to doing your stitching. If you want your project to come out beautiful, if you want those stitches to stand up looking great, if you want them to last for a long time, if you don't want to have issues when you're stitching where you lose what they call registration, where your thread just kind of shifts away from the actual design and it looks all wonky and you know it's something wrong, or if you start having needle breaks and bobbin issues and what we call bird nest, which I'll go over in another video, then you have to make sure that you're using the correct stabilizers, because that's one thing that can throw it off. Your stabilizer, your needle, and your thread, and the way your machine is threaded are some of the top reasons people have difficulties with the turnout of their project. How it looks, how it stitches, and how difficult it is. Hooping, stabilizer, needle, and what's the other one that I said? The correct, can't think of it. I just said it. I just lost my mind. But anyway, those are the things that are very important that you have to keep in mind when you're setting up a project and you have to use an array of stabilizers. So, hopefully this has been helpful to you, and I will continue to give you more information about how all of this works together to do a project. And so I will see you on the next video. Please don't forget to subscribe. Hit the bell so you can get notification. Hit the like button and come back often to see what else that we're talking about. Thank you for stopping by. Please tell your friends, and I will see you on the next video. Have a great day.